Can you talk about the anti-Christian nature of Keynesian economics? This was a listener-submitted question.
Hey, I didn't submit it.
And you need to do this in about 30 seconds.
John Maynard Keynes was a British economist. He lived in the 1800s, 1900s. I believe that economies grew best when consumption was encouraged or mandated by the government. Let me say that another way. If you spend money, if you make the government spend money, you force people to spend money, we can grow the economy. So forced spending grows the economy. Savings is discouraged. Savings is lack of consumption, and consumption's what fuels growth. Therefore, allow the animal spirits to come out, and we can have some real economic growth and some real good times. His attitude was that when economies slow, the best way to kickstart the economy was for the government to spend massive amounts of money. To finance this spending, they would use debt. So they would do debt issuance, borrowing money from either other nations or their citizens in order to fuel their spending. He further was considered the father of modern economics. And the massive debt crisis that we are facing today is largely by the implementation of all of his insane philosophies and ideas. Now, ideas have consequences. Economic ideas have massive economic consequences, and we are dealing with the fruits of some really bad ideas. John Maynard Keynes is not someone that we should emulate or really try to improve or encourage upon. His ideas were anti-God to their core. He was an atheist. He believed that only this life matters. Nothing in the next life matters because there is no next life. Therefore, you need to get all the good while you're alive and leave the next generations to deal with the mess. None of that matters. Hedonism is essentially the idea behind all of his philosophies. Get as much joy and happiness today as you can possibly get. Here are a few quotes that John Maynard Keynes was known for. In the long run, we're all dead. You can see a little bit of his philosophy through there. We're all dead. In the long run, we're all dead. Doesn't matter. We're all going to die. So nothing really matters. Get the most you can get now. He also said, the avoidance of tax is the only intellectual pursuit that carries reward.
Wow.
Sounds like a Ron Swanson quote.
Again, so that's an interesting one because his philosophy is to create more taxes, but yet he recognizes that individually we should all try to avoid taxes, but the government should really try to implement taxes and grow the tax base. So it's kind of funny how it's a contradictory self-refuting philosophy because he recognized the taxes are a bad thing, that one should try to avoid them. Capitalism, here's another quote. Capitalism is the astounding belief that the most wickedest of men will do the most wickedest of things for the greatest good of everyone. Can you see a little bit of his economic ideology coming through? He was a socialist in or at his core. He believed that capitalism was bad and that capitalistic endeavors was a wicked thing that freed men up to be as wicked as possible. He didn't understand capitalism. He didn't understand human nature. In fact, when you do the whole animal spirits nonsense that he tried to free so that we would spend as much as we could spend, we would have no savings, he didn't understand that what that would result in was a boom and bust cycle, that we would have these roaring 20s where the economy was robust and strong, but that the evil heart of the human would come out through fraud and abuse, which led to the Great Depression and the Great Financial Crash of 1929 and all of the negative implications thereafter, which then led to FDR's New Deal and all of the government spending that they tried to use to get us out of the mess, which actually prolonged the mess in the first place. John Maynard Keynes is no friend to our economy.
And why is he relevant? It's because he is considered the father of our modern economic system. So that's why this is relevant.
Yeah.
Everything you hear about what's going on with the government, both in America and around the world, is simply implementation of his insane ideas. That it is not going to end well for us. In fact, one of the things that encourages me the most about our current political environment, no matter what you think about Donald Trump and Doge and all of that, they are implementing strategies that are the opposite of, in many cases, not always, but in many cases, opposite of Keynesian economics. They're kind of going to more of a Hayekian approach to economics, which is more based in Christian ethic and Christian ideas than in the atheism of John Maynard Keynes. And if you want to know more about F.A. Hayek, I encourage you to look up F.A. Hayek. And if you really want something enjoyable, look up Epic Rap Battles, Keynes versus Hayek. Oh my goodness. Both of those videos are a hoot. Epic rap battles.
You showed them to us weeks ago, months ago.
Maybe we can put a link in the show notes. They're fun.
We were laughing hysterically at this, and very informative too, as you have it. You know, a good passage of scripture to think about as we're talking about Keynes is, no one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. This verse counters Keynes' materialism, urging listeners to prioritize God's kingdom over this debt-driven consumption, aligning with stewardship that honors God's ownership and authority of all things.